some of the evidence show that the Mediterranean diet is actually almost as good for the planet as a vegan diet. So this one you've probably all seen, is famous, and you can see that from this infographic, clearly the main culprit, meat and dairy, by a huge margin. But at the bottom we've got the plant-based foods like peas, wheat, maize and tomatoes. So it can feel like there's increasing pressure to change diet. But, of course, there's the issue of not just environmental impacts, right? You've got your social, workers' rights, animal welfare standards, all of these other complications. So it's very tricky. But standards exist. You know, you've got the Marine Stewardship Council for Seafood, the Beef and Bark for Environment and Farming, Fair Trade is a very well-known one, and the Rainforest Alliance, and, of course, Soil Association for Organic. Having said all of this, we can see going vegan does have a significant impact on your carbon footprint, but when we look at the impact of meat and dairy on the environment as a whole, reduction is one of the best things that we can do. So eating less and better, right? So can we eat less but really better quality, higher quality, less of the factory farmed meat, and just go for quality over quantity? Same with fish and dairy. We don't need to be extreme about the way we change the way we eat, but if everybody took steps in terms of smaller consumption of meat, we'd be doing better.
There's no doubt that if everyone became a vegan, it would have a huge impact on the environmental impact of our diets in the UK. The vegan diets, on average, were about a quarter of the environmental impact across the different indicators. But I don't think it's realistic or even achievable that everyone in the UK does become a vegan. If we really want to make a difference, we just need to kind of reduce the amount of meat that we're consuming, and that can make a big difference. And it's something that we can all do individually. There might be a lot of reasons why we can't make differences to the way that we transport ourselves around or the way that we heat our homes, etc. But our diet is something that's under our own control. So it's a real area that we can empower people to make a difference in their own environmental footprint.
Looked at various diets, including vegan, vegetarian, and meat eating, and asked people what they ate and determined their carbon footprint. And here's a chart with that vegan group at the lowest total footprint, and then as you go up to vegetarian and then to meat, you can see it go up. And I will say that the vegans were eating a bit less calories though, so thankfully they had a calorie adjusted chart for, emissions per 1,000 calories, and it looks quite similar still. And back to the other one though, I would add that generally these European studies are looking at a meat consumption level that is significantly lower than the US. For example, Scarborough et al. Looked at UK meat consumption, and they found that vegans were about 2/3 lower, but if we just look at the average US meat consumption, they were 3/4 lower on the vegan diet. Yeah, so clearly a vegan diet's a low carbon footprint diet, but then another side note was that the vegetarians had 20% of their dietary emissions from cheese alone. And this is out of Poland, and they did a sort of extrapolation experiment where they said, hey, if everybody went on a vegan diet, how would that affect emissions? And they found that it would offset about 40% of transportation and 85% of industrial emissions for the entire country of Poland, which is wild. That is no joke. Now you know.
Climatarian diet can significantly reduce your carbon footprint. First, it focuses on local and seasonal foods, cutting down on transportation emissions. Second, it emphasizes plant-based meals, which use far less water and land and meat production. Third, by choosing organic, you support sustainable farming practices that enhance biodiversity. Fourth, reducing food waste is key. About 1/3 of all food produced is wasted. Fifth, climatarian diets often include less processed foods, which means fewer emissions from manufacturing. Sixth, eating less red meat can lower methane emissions, a potent greenhouse gas. Seventh, incorporating more legumes and grains not only boosts nutrition, but also enriches the soil. Eighth, a climatarian diet encourages mindful eating, fostering a deeper connection with our food sources. Ninth, it can be budget-friendly. Seasonal produce is often cheaper. Finally, embracing this lifestyle can inspire others to make eco-conscious choices, creating a ripple effect for the planet.
Dirigir carro por 16 quilômetros. E se eu te disser que a sua dieta pode ser a arma mais poderosa contra as mudanças climáticas? Bem-vindo ao climatarianismo, um movimento que está revolucionando pratos e o planeta. Climatarianismo não é só comer verde, é escolher alimentos baseados no impacto climático. Carne bovina? Topo da lista de emissões. Leguminosas e vegetais locais? Pegada 10 vezes menor. A meta é reduzir até 70% das emissões individuais só ajustando o prato. A agropecuária responde por 14,5% das emissões globais, mais que todo o setor de transportes. E não é só CO2. O metano do gado é 28 vezes mais poluente. Se você quiser virar vegano, perfeito. Mas pequenos trocas já fazem diferença. Substituir as proteínas da carne pela mistura de arroz com feijão, ao menos uma vez por semana, já pode ajudar. Como praticar? Comece com o efeito cascata. Compre local. Alimentos viajam em média 2.400 quilômetros antes do prato. O transporte equivale a 11% das emissões. Pratique desperdício zero. 1/3 dos alimentos vai para o lixo. Congele, reaproveite, composte. Prefira alternativas: feijão, lentilha, grão de bico, ervilha, quinoa, tofu e até insetos. Sim, eles são nutritivos. Climatarianismo é sobre poder no seu garfo. Que tal começar hoje? Se esse vídeo fez você repensar seu prato, deixe um like e marque alguém que precisa ver isso. O planeta agradece.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. We talk a lot about ways to fight climate change, switching to electric cars, reducing plastic, saving energy. But what if one of the most powerful tools was right on your dinner plate? Today we're diving into the Climatarian Diet, a simple, powerful way to shrink your carbon footprint and eat healthier at the same time. Think of it less as a diet and more as a mindful approach to eating for the planet. So, what exactly is a climatarian? In short, it's someone who makes food choices based on minimizing their environmental impact, particularly their greenhouse gas emissions. Our global food system accounts for about a quarter of all man-made greenhouse gases. From the land used to grow the food, to the water needed, to the fuel burned for transportation, and even the methane released from food waste, every bite has a carbon cost. The Climatarian Diet is all about lowering that cost. Unlike vegetarian or vegan diets, the Climatarian Diet doesn't have strict, all-or-nothing rules. It's a plant-forward approach that emphasizes mindfulness and making better choices every day. The biggest lever we can pull in the Climatarian Diet is protein choice. The production of red meat, particularly beef and lamb, has a vastly larger carbon footprint than almost any other food. This is due to land use, deforestation, and the large amounts of methane that livestock produce. The simple climatarian rule? Swap it out. It doesn't mean you have to go fully plant-based, but try reducing your red meat consumption significantly. Instead, prioritize legumes, beans, lentils, chickpeas, which are carbon-friendly, nutrient-dense, and require far less land and water. Next up are poultry and pork, which have a much lower impact than red meat. And for seafood, look for options that are sustainably sourced, often labeled as such, to protect ocean ecosystems. A great starting challenge? Try meatless Mondays, or simply replace half the meat in your favorite recipes with mushrooms, lentils, or plant-based alternatives. Every little change adds up to a massive planetary benefit. Our next principle is about food miles. How far your food travels to get to your plate. When you eat local and seasonal, you're cutting out long-haul transportation, which often involves heavy polluting air or sea freight. Think about it. That strawberry flown in from a continent away in the middle of winter has a much higher carbon cost than the one grown down the road in your summer season. Shopping at your local farmer's market is a fantastic way to do this. You're supporting your community, the food is often fresher and more nutritious, and you're dramatically reducing its journey. It's also important to be mindful of out-of-season produce grown in heated greenhouses, which can sometimes use a huge amount of energy. If a vegetable is out of season in your region, consider a frozen or canned alternative, which can surprisingly have a lower footprint because it's been processed near the source. Finally, we can't talk about food's impact without discussing waste. Globally, about a third of all food produced is wasted. When food ends up in a landfill, it decomposes and releases methane, a greenhouse gas far more potent than carbon dioxide in the short term. The climatarian way is to be a zero-waste warrior. Plan your meals to buy only what you need. Store your food correctly to extend its shelf life. Use up your leftovers creatively. Composting any unavoidable scraps closes the loop and prevents methane emissions. Beyond waste, be a savvy shopper. Look for minimal or compostable packaging. If you have to buy plastic, make sure it's recyclable. And keep an eye out for eco-labels that indicate a lower carbon footprint or ethical sourcing. The Climatarian diet isn't about perfection. It's about making better choices more often. It's the ultimate way to vote with your fork and prove that what's good for you can also be great for the planet. Start small. Swap that steak for lentils once a week. Hit up your local market this weekend. We have the power to create a healthier future, and it all starts in the kitchen. If you found this helpful, hit that like button and subscribe for more ways to live a climate-friendly life. What's your favorite low-carbon meal? Let me know in the comments below. See you next time.